Welcome to 10 Minute Climate, the podcast brought to you by Beaverbrook Energy. Join Max.
Hi, I'm Max.
And Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony.
Who between them have got over 70 years of experience in the energy industry, and they're here to share it with you. It's everything you need to know, delivered in just 10 minutes. So let's get started.
Right, you're going to like this one because you're an old sailor.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
11 years.
You were still, literally it was sales when you started, right?
Not quite.
Okay.
Wooden boilers, maybe.
All right. So, but global transport is dominated by shipping. It's 80% of all goods moved in the world,
Yes,
I think.
by weight.
By weight. But it's actually very efficient compared to obviously flying stuff or whatever. But it's still, I think, 3% of global carbon emissions, which is not insignificant. It's kind of like the size of Germany.
Yes.
And we've got to do something about it because it's chugging along. And the other thing about ships is that the fuel they use is really nasty. The way I always think about it,
it's the rubbish.
It's the stuff. If you've got stuff at the bottom of the coffee pot, it's the real sort of gunk.
The stuff that's left for marine bunkers is what's left after you take the black stuff out that you spray on the roads. So it's the stuff that isn't good enough to spray on the roads.
Right.
Is what they burn in
filthy.
marine bunkers.
And there's been a lot of sulfur emissions which are now being cleaned up. There's a whole geoengineering point about sulfur emissions. Let's not even go there. It is getting better. But what's interesting is there's a lot of new tech coming. There's a lot of new ideas in shipping about how to make it more efficient and use different fuels. When I'm thinking about this subject, with shipping, I divide it in three ways. I think one is about fossil fuel ships. We'll talk about that in a second. Two, it's about efficiency of existing ships. And three, it's new fuels, right? But the first one, the easiest way to decarbonize shipping is for the fossil fuel industry to cease to exist.
Yeah, because like half the world shipping is moving hydrocarbons in some form, coal or oil or
it's
something
half the
around.
world's shipping.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. You could have a pipeline.
So 1.5% of the world's emissions are because we're using fossil fuels. It's just nuts. That's the easy one. Well, it's not easy. It's simple. It's simple to say on a podcast at least, right? So the second one is efficiency. And people have done this for ages because ship owners want to use less fuel because of less cost, right?
I was working on performance efficiency in ships in the 1970s. We were looking at reducing consumption because you log every day how many nautical miles you travel per ton of bunker fuel, because even then, after the first 1970s oil crisis, all of a sudden the cost of running the ship in terms of fuel went up 6 or 7-fold, and it became critical.
It's always been there. You know, the old story you tell me about the tea clippers.
Yeah. Well, they were initially they were designed to move a very high cost, low weight,
high value product
from the east, tea at high speed. And the race to get the new crop of tea back to the UK was Thermopylae and all that sort of malarkey. Then when the tea trade sort of calmed down a little bit, they then started moving wool from Australia, and they all went bust because nobody cared. They
didn't need it fast.
It wasn't high value. It didn't need to travel at 20 knots when everything else was traveling at 7 or 8 knots, because the tea clippers were an attempt in the 19th century to start moving things more quickly. And the reason that shipping became hydrocarbon driven is because it gave stability and speed. You could always guarantee the coal was going to be there. You couldn't guarantee the wind was going to blow. It was always going to run on time. It was going to be when they said when it's going to be. People used to be waiting at the end of Cornwall trying to see if they could see the tea clippers coming, so they could then send a telegraph to London to tell people that they were arriving.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
But speed is it's useful, but it's not the be all and end all with big shipping. So getting it more efficient, people have been doing things like slow steaming to reduce efficiency. It's like running your car at 55 miles an hour instead of 70. You're to be using less fuel. It's just more efficient.
I can remember being told in the 70s, and I think I've probably mentioned this before, about loading up in Saudi Arabia with a cargo of crude oil to take to Rotterdam and being told to sail to Europe at the slowest navigable safe speed, waiting for the price to go up. And also you're saving an enormous amount of money because, like all internal combustion engines, the power to fuel curve goes mad at the end. You have to put so much more fuel in to get a little bit more energy out.
But what people are now, the big noise and efficiency at the moment is putting sails back on combustion engine
sail
ships.
assisted, yeah. Because the trade winds, which used to govern North Atlantic trade for years, still blow. So you've got this wind assisted. I mean, I hate to think the size of the spinnaker you'd have to put on a 400,000 ton tanker to have any material effect on it.
But if it's doing a few percentage points, it helps. People are saving fuel. They're reducing carbon emissions. But yeah, we're not going to solve the problem through a few sails on top of ships. It's got to be new fuel, and the options are for new fuels. We've got hydrogen, nuclear, ammonia, and methanol, basically. So, I mean, let's go with nuclear first. Nuclear. There have been nuclear ships. 3
cargo ships, and their problem was no one would let them dock.
So, but the Chinese are talking about it now, doing it again.
Yeah.
Maybe they can do it.
It's important to remember, though, there is a difference between nuclear-powered carriers and a commercial nuclear ship, because the sort of nuclear reaction they use in military vessels is very, very different from what you'd get away with in commercial.
Yeah, they're much higher.
They're much higher rate of
fuel
degeneration, and they're a lot less stable.
So then you've got hydrogen.
Yeah, another magic rainbow type idea that it's like, where are you getting the hydrogen from? You know, it's the same old. Why not use solar and batteries?
I mean, it's the hydrogen is where you get it from. It's expensive. It also needs a lot of space. It's 7 times less energy dense than the natural gas. So you've got to have a massive
unless you use a
container.
more enormous amount of energy of cooling it down and compressing it, and then
steel to hold it.
Steel to hold it in, and then so you've got the weight. You might as well put batteries in there.
Yeah, the people have argued that it's never going to happen, and I think that's probably right.
Yeah,
the Japanese are having a go, but even they're pretty skeptical. You've then got, in terms of combustion fuels, you've got ammonia, which you can use. You create it from, in theory, green hydrogen, but it's pretty nasty stuff. You don't want to be moving it around.
Yeah, it's something you want somebody else to be using. Yeah.
And so I think that the number one for long range, high volume, high weight ships is methanol. It's liquid at room temperature. It's more energy dense than hydrogen.
Then we get back to the same problem as we've got with low carbon air travel and low carbon automobile travel, is what crops are you going to displace to make your methanol?
No, but I think you make it from power to liquid.
Okay. Again, it's quite an energy intensive process.
Yeah. But it is. But then I think it only comes with hugely cheap renewables, solar and wind, particularly solar, in sunny places where you can make it very, very cheaply.
And it's somewhere to put your energy.
And you can move it around. So that's the only way I can see it happening at the moment. And the other thing we've got to mention, obviously, is battery ships. There are a few. China have got a couple. I think they're in inland waterways at the moment. And I think the first big ferry is going to be. It's being built in Tasmania, and it's going to operate between Uruguay and Argentina.
There's one in Scotland already.
Okay, little one.
Yeah, but how little's little? It's bigger than your house.
Fair enough. Yeah, so batteries will come as well, but I don't think they're going to do the very long-range stuff. It's not going to do cross-Pacific.
No, it's the batteries, because of the power-to-weight ratio thing, that batteries will be the same for shipping as they are for air travel, is that you'll get certain short haul journeys will be doable by batteries, because you go a certain distance, recharge, come back again, recharge. That's easy. But like you say, going a few thousand miles across the Atlantic or 13,000 miles across the Pacific is probably quite difficult.
Unless you do it on your favourite thing, airships.
Well, airships is good. Or we could build a very long tunnel and put a train across the Pacific, because maglev trains can match aircraft speed.
There's someone seriously looking at that across the Atlantic. Yeah. And they reckon 3 hours? No, it can't be, because it wouldn't be supersonic, but it'd be pretty fast.
And the other thing is
pretty cheap to run. It'd be expensive to dig the hole.
The sea air effect thing, the Caspian Sea monster that the Russians did, which is very efficient. You use the interface air effect. So it's half ship, half aeroplane. And that actually cuts down on the amount of energy you need to move.
The Americans have got one that they've had their first trial flights, and it's very interesting because what is the controller? What is the guy that drives it? Who's he regulated by?
knowing the Americans, probably the Food and Drink Administration.
But it's not. He's not a pilot.
Yeah.
He's not a pilot. It's not under FAA.
Is he a pilot?
No.
But what
It's
is he
regulated by the Coast Guard. He's a captain.
Really?
Yep. They're entirely. There's a different regulation which makes it much easier.
It was the same problem with hovercraft people.
Okay, so in summary, decarbonise shipping, get rid of the fossil fuels, add some sails in the short order, move to methanol.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us grow and continue bringing you valuable content. If you're curious to learn more about Beaverbrook Energy and how we're navigating the future of energy, feel free to reach out to us directly. And for those looking for quick, actionable insights on the energy transition, be sure to subscribe to our 10-second climate newsletter, delivered every weekend with essential intelligence to help business leaders stay ahead of the curve. We appreciate you listening, and we look forward to having you join us again next time. Stay informed, stay engaged, and take care.